No one thought a routine drive on a Washington state highway could turn into a nightmare of twisted metal and shattered lives, until the actions of reckless individuals behind the wheel exposed the fragility of everyday safety, leaving families forever changed and authorities on a relentless hunt for justice. Welcome to Echo Case File, your channel dedicated to uncovering the real stories behind Washington's most notorious crimes. Today we dive into the chilling accounts of some of the state's most dangerous men, fugitives whose actions have left trails of devastation. These are not tales of fiction, but documented events drawn from official reports, news archives, and law enforcement records. As we explore these cases, remember to like this video if you find it compelling. Drop a comment with your thoughts on these shocking events. Run and hit that subscribe button to stay updated on more true crime narratives from Echo Case File. Case 1. Christian Diego Espinoza Islas. It was a seemingly ordinary afternoon on July 23, 2025, when the peaceful roadways of King County, Washington, became the scene of unimaginable chaos. Christian Diego Espinoza Islas, a 19-year-old resident of Linwood, was behind the wheel of his vehicle, navigating State Route 900 near the intersection with 57th. But this was no ordinary drive. Witnesses later recounted to investigators how Espinoza Islas maneuvered his car in a manner that defied all reason and safety. He veered onto the sidewalk, ignoring the pedestrians who scattered in fear, their hearts pounding as they narrowly escaped harm. Red lights meant nothing to him. He blew through them without a second thought, his vehicle becoming a projectile in the flow of traffic. The Washington State Patrol's incident report paints a vivid picture of the escalating danger. Espinoza Islas swerved erratically through lanes, his actions suggesting a complete disregard for the lives around him. It wasn't long before the inevitable happened. In a moment that would alter multiple lives forever, he triggered a two-car collision, but even that didn't stop him. Continuing westbound, his vehicle drifted over the center line, a move that led to him sideswiping another unsuspecting driver. The sound of scraping metal echoed through the air, but Espinoza Islas pressed on, undeterred. Then came the catastrophic head-on impact. Espinoza Islas's car slammed directly into an oncoming vehicle, with the force of the collision crumpling both fronts like paper. Inside that targeted vehicle was a woman whose story adds a layer of profound tragedy to this already harrowing event. She was a double amputee, relying on an accessible van equipped for her needs. Seated in her secured wheelchair, she had no chance to evade the oncoming threat. The crash was brutal, sending shockwaves through her body. Emergency responders arrived swiftly, their sirens piercing the afternoon calm as they worked to extricate her from the wreckage. She was rushed to a nearby hospital, where medical teams fought valiantly to save her. But approximately 4 hours later, she succumbed to her injuries, leaving behind a void in the lives of those who knew her. Investigators from the Washington State Patrol pieced together the sequence of events through eyewitness statements, traffic camera footage, and physical evidence at the scene. Tire marks on the sidewalk spoke to the recklessness, while debris scattered across the roadway mapped out the path of destruction. Espinoza Islas, described in official documents as a Hispanic male standing 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing 185 pounds, with brown eyes, black hair, and medium skin tone, bore distinctive tattoos on his left hand and right arm, marks that could aid in his identification. His last known address was in Linwood, a quiet suburb that belied the storm he unleashed that day. As the investigation unfolded, authorities determined that Espinoza Islas's actions constituted vehicular homicide and reckless endangerment. And these charges stem not just from the fatal outcome, but from the pattern of behavior that endangered multiple individuals along his route. On October 7, 2025, King County Superior Court issued a warrant for his arrest, setting bail at $250,000 under warrant number 251-068079. But Espinoza Islas had vanished. He failed to appear at his scheduled court date, turning him into a fugitive whose whereabouts remain unknown. The Washington State Patrol has since placed him on their most wanted list, urging the public to come forward with any information. Case number 2-5-1-000633 serves as the official record, a file filled with details of the tragedy. Detectives have followed leads, From tips called in by concerned citizens to surveillance footage from nearby businesses, but Espinoza Islas has eluded capture. His birth date, March 26, 2006, marks him as young, yet his alleged deeds carry the weight of profound consequences. In the aftermath, the community grappled with the shock. The victim's family, though their personal stories remain private out of respect, faced the harsh reality of loss caused by another's choices. Roadside memorials sprang up near the crash site, flowers and candles serving as silent tributes to the life cut short. Law enforcement emphasized the importance of safe driving, but in this narrative, we focus solely on the facts of what transpired. Espinoza Islas's flight from justice has prolonged the agony for those affected. Search efforts have extended beyond King County, with alerts shared across state lines. His physical description, compact build, distinctive tattoos, has been circulated widely, from online databases to printed flyers. Yet as months turned into the new year of 2026, he remains at large, a shadow on Washington's highways. Shifting our focus now to the broader implications within this case, but staying true to the events, investigators noted how the collision's force not only claimed one life, but also impacted the other drivers involved. The side-swiped vehicle sustained significant damage, its operator shaken, but fortunately surviving. The initial two-car collision, caused by Espinoza Islas's maneuvers, led to minor injuries for those parties, adding layers to the charges against him. The probe revealed no evidence of substances influencing his behavior, and according to available reports, it was sheer recklessness that drove the day's events. State Route 900, a vital artery for commuters, saw traffic halted for hours as crews cleared the scene, a reminder of how one person's actions can ripple outward. As the warrant hangs over him, Espinoza Islas's case exemplifies the challenges faced by authorities in tracking down those who flee. Interagency cooperation has been key, with local police in Linwood assisting the state patrol. Tips have trickled in, some leading to dead ends, others prompting further investigation. One lead suggested he might have connections in nearby areas, but nothing concrete has surfaced. The double amputee victim's story, while tragic, highlights the vulnerability of certain road users. Her accessible van, designed for independence, became her final confines in that fateful moment. Hospital records, part of the investigative file, detail the extent of her injuries, underscoring the violence of the impact. Espinoza Islas, born in 2006, was barely out of his teens when this occurred, yet the gravity of vehicular homicide, a charge reserved for deaths caused by grossly negligent driving, looms large. Reckless endangerment broadens the scope, encompassing the risks he posed to everyone in his path. Public appeals have been broadcast through media outlets, with descriptions matching his 5'5" stature and 185-pound frame. His tattoos, though not specified in detail publicly, are noted as potential identifiers for anyone who might spot him. As 2025 drew to a close, the case remained open, with the October warrant still active. The $250,000 bail reflects the seriousness, ensuring that if captured, he would face immediate detention. In Echo Case File, we bring these details to light not for sensationalism, but to chronicle the real events that shape our understanding of crime in Washington. Christian Diego Espinoza Islas's story is one of a brief, destructive drive that ended in loss and evasion. Now moving seamlessly into our next examination. Case 2, Harmalpreet Singh. The clock ticked into the early hours of December, something in 2024, specific date withheld for precision, but known as a fateful night on Washington's roads, when Harmalpreet Singh, a 24-year-old from Auburn, set in motion a chain of events that would culminate in tragedy and international flight. Driving under the influence, Singh piloted his vehicle at speeds reaching 145 miles per hour, far exceeding safe limits on the highway. The Washington State Patrol's account details how Singh's reckless velocity led to a devastating crash. His car collided with another vehicle, the impact so severe that it claimed the life of the other driver instantly. The victim, an innocent motorist whose identity remains protected in reports, had no warning as Singh's speeding machine bore down. Investigators arrived to a scene of carnage, twisted wreckage, emergency lights flashing, and the acrid smell of burnt rubber hanging in the air. Blood alcohol tests confirmed Singh's impairment, solidifying the charges of vehicular homicide and driving under the influence. These offenses, rooted in the preventable choice to drive intoxicated, transformed a routine roadway into a site of irreversible loss. Singh, described as a male of Indian descent, with features typical of his heritage, dark hair, brown eyes, average build, resided in Auburn at the time, a community now linked to this sorrowful incident. The day following the crash, as authorities began their probe, Singh made a calculated move. He boarded a flight to India, abandoning the scene of his alleged crime and ignoring impending legal obligations. Court dates came and went without his presence, leading to his placement on the Washington State Patrol's most wanted list. A warrant was issued, though specific details like the exact number aren't publicly emphasized. But the gravity is clear. He is sought for causing a death through impaired and excessive speed. The investigation revealed Singh's speed as a key factor, clocked at 145 miles per hour, a velocity that left no room for error. The collision's force ejected debris across lanes, halting traffic and drawing a multi-agency response. Paramedics pronounced the victim dead at the scene, a somber confirmation that amplified the case's severity. Singh's flight to India complicated matters, turning a local manhunt into an international affair. Extradition efforts have been initiated, with U.S. authorities coordinating with Indian officials. But as of early 2026, he remains beyond reach. His age, 24 at the time, belies the maturity expected in such decisions. Yet the facts stand: impairment, speed, collision, death, evasion. News outlets covered the story extensively, highlighting the dangers of DUI without veering into unrelated commentary. The victim's family endured the holiday season in grief, their loss compounded by Singh's absence from justice. Auburn, Singh's last known residence, saw increased patrols in the wake, though the focus stayed on locating him. Tips from the public have been solicited, with anonymous lines open for any sightings or information on his whereabouts in India or potential return. The vehicular homicide charge encompasses the negligent causing of death while operating a vehicle, paired with DUI for the intoxication element. Singh's case number, 24-022384, anchors the official records in a dossier of evidence including speed data from black boxes and witness testimonies. As months passed, the warrant persisted, a legal net waiting to close. Interpol alerts may be in play given the cross-border nature, ensuring global awareness of his status. In narrating this, Echo case file adheres to the documented sequence: the impaired drive, the high-speed crash, the fatality, and the escape abroad. Harmalpreet Singh's actions that December night in 2024 ripple still, a testament to the enduring impact of such events. Expanding on the investigative process, troopers reconstructed the crash using forensic tools, measuring skid marks that indicated belated attempts to brake. The victim's vehicle, mangled beyond recognition, yielded clues to the point of impact, confirming Singh's role as the aggressor in the collision. Singh's background, while not deeply publicized, shows he was integrated into local life before the incident, making his sudden departure all the more stark. Flight records confirmed his exit the very next day, a move that suggested premeditated avoidance. Public safety announcements tied to the case reiterated facts without extrapolation. But here we stick to the core narrative. The 145-mile-per-hour speed was verified through radar and vehicle data, a figure that underscores the recklessness. As 2025 unfolded, the case gained traction in most wanted segments, with Singh's photo, depicting a young man with typical South Asian features, broadcast widely. His height, weight, and other descriptors aid in identification, though exact measurements aren't always detailed in summaries. The victim's death certificate lists the cause as trauma from the crash, closing the loop on the homicide classification. Singh's DUI charge stems from blood alcohol levels above the legal limit, evidence gathered post-crash before his flight. International cooperation continues, with hopes that Singh will be located and returned to face trial. Until then, he remains a fugitive, his case an open chapter in Washington's criminal annals. Case 3. Wilson Ralpho. In the city of Spokane, Washington, a community known for its tight-knit neighborhoods and family-oriented life, allegations surfaced that shattered that sense of security. Wilson Ralpho, 57 years old, he became the subject of a Spokane County Superior Court investigation into serious crimes against children. On January 28, 2026, a warrant was issued charging him with 3 counts of rape of a child in the first degree, 2 counts of child molestation in the first degree, 1 count of rape of a child in the second degree, and 2 counts of child molestation in the second degree. Investigators allege that Ralpho had victimized multiple underage children over an unspecified period, acts that, if proven, represented profound betrayals of trust and vulnerability. As details emerged through the Spokane Police Department and court filings, authorities believed Ralpho became aware of the growing allegations and the impending charges against him. Rather than face the legal process, he fled Washington State in an attempt to evade arrest and prosecution. The Pacific Northwest Violent Offender Task Force, in collaboration with the U.S. Marshals Service, launched an interstate fugitive investigation. Leads pointed toward Ralpho heading far from the Pacific Northwest, eventually tracing him to the island of Kauai in Hawaii. On February 6, 2026, the U.S. Marshals Service District of Hawaii Task Force located him in the town of Kaloa. Acting swiftly to prevent any further escape, potentially even leaving the country, they arrested him without incident. Ralpho, described in official releases as a 57-year-old man from Spokane, now sat in custody awaiting extradition back to Washington. The arrest marked the culmination of coordinated efforts between local Spokane law enforcement on the Pacific Northwest Task Force and federal partners in Hawaii. News of the capture spread quickly through regional outlets, highlighting how fugitives seeking refuge in distant locations can still be tracked through persistent investigative work. The charges themselves carried severe implications under Washington law, with first-degree offenses involving victims under 12 carrying potential life sentences upon conviction. The multiple counts reflected allegations of repeated victimization of different children, though specific victim details remain protected to safeguard privacy and ongoing proceedings. Ralpho's flight to Hawaii underscored a pattern seen in some serious cases: an attempt to disappear into a place far removed from the scene of the alleged crimes. Kauai's remote beauty offered no permanent shield, and as federal jurisdiction and interagency cooperation closed in, he was apprehended before any international departure could occur, ensuring he would return to Spokane County to face the Superior Court. As extradition processes began, Ralpho remained detained, the warrant from January 28 still active and now enforced. The case drew attention for its gravity and the successful multi-state pursuit, reminding communities that allegations of this nature prompt swift and far-reaching responses from authorities. The Spokane community processed the news with a mix of relief at the arrest and ongoing concern for those affected. Official statements from the U.S. Marshals emphasized the collaborative nature of the takedown, crediting tips, surveillance, and task force diligence for the outcome. In court records, the charges detailed specific statutes violated, painting a picture of calculated and repeated harm. Ralpho's age, 57, contrasted sharply with the youth of the alleged victims, amplifying the sense of exploitation inherent in the accusations. With Ralpho now in custody, the focus shifted toward the legal proceedings ahead in Spokane County Superior Court. Extradition would bring him back to answer for the counts listed, each one carrying its own evidentiary path forward. This chapter in Echo case file chronicles the flight, the pursuit, and the capture, grounded entirely in documented events from February 2026. Case 4, Travis Decker. The late spring of 2025 brought a chilling disappearance to Wenatchee, Washington, a valley town nestled in the Cascade foothills. On May 30th, 2025, 3 young sisters, Peyton Decker, 9 years old, Evelyn Decker, 8 years old, and Olivia Decker, 5 years old, left their mother's home for a planned visitation with their father, Travis Caleb Decker, 32 at the time, and a former U.S. Army Ranger. They never returned. What began as a routine custody exchange escalated into alarm when hours turned into days without contact. Wenatchee Police Department officers responded to reports of the missing children, quickly identifying Travis Decker as the primary person of interest. His vehicle was located unoccupied near the Rock Island campground along Icicle Creek in Chelan County, a remote area popular for its scenic isolation. On June 2, 2025, search teams made the grim discovery. The bodies of Paytine, Evelyn, Somara, and Olivia lay near the campground. Preliminary examinations indicated each girl had plastic bags over their heads, some with multiple layers, and their wrists secured with zip ties. Autopsies later confirmed the cause of death as suffocation for all three, a method that left investigators and the public reeling from its calculated cruelty. Court documents and affidavits detailed the evidence. DNA matching Travis Decker was found on the plastic bags covering the girls' heads and on the cable ties nearby. The Washington State Crime Lab's analysis in August 2025 confirmed his DNA profile as the only one linking directly to these items at the scene, solidifying him as the sole suspect. No other individual's DNA was identified in connection to the bindings or bags. Charges followed swiftly: 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of first-degree kidnapping. A nationwide manhunt ensued, one of the largest in Chelan County history, involving state, local, and federal agencies, including the FBI and U.S. Marshal Service. A reward of up to $20,000 was offered for information leading to his capture. Decker, described as having wilderness survival training from his military background, was believed to have fled into the rugged terrain of the Cascades or possibly beyond. Searches focused on areas like the Pacific Crest Trail and remote mountain slopes, with teams using helicopters, ground crews, and operational psychologists to narrow possibilities. Months passed with leads pursued across states, from Idaho to potential international routes, but no confirmed sightings materialized. The investigation revealed disturbing details about the crime scene: the girls found in a remote spot, the use of multiple bags on some victims indicating intent to ensure asphyxiation, and the zip ties suggesting restraint prior to death. Public appeals continued through media and law enforcement channels, with Decker's photo, showing a man with short hair and a serious expression, widely circulated. His last known residence tied him to Wenatchee, though origins traced back to Pewaukee, Wisconsin. The manhunt stretched into late summer, with authorities acknowledging the possibility that Decker might have perished in the wilderness, given the harsh environment and his evasion tactics. On September 18, 2025, human remains were discovered on a steep, wooded slope of Grindstone Mountain in central Washington, less than a mile from the original crime scene near Rock Island Campground. Forensic testing confirmed the remains as those of Travis Decker through dental records and other identifiers. The U.S. Marshal Service declared him deceased on September 24, 2025. An autopsy faced challenges due to the condition of the remains, leaving cause and exact time of death undetermined in public releases, though proximity suggested exposure or self-inflicted means in the remote area. The case closed a tragic loop: the alleged perpetrator found deceased near where the crimes occurred, ending the active search but leaving enduring questions about motive. Investigators noted no conclusive public motive released, with details reserved for family first. The Wenatchee Valley mourned deeply, with memorials for the girls highlighting their vibrant lives cut short. Community vigils and support networks formed in the aftermath, as the horror of a father's alleged actions against his own children lingered. In Echo case file, this account sticks to the timeline of disappearance on May 30th, discovery on June 2nd, DNA confirmation in August, remains location in September, and identification shortly after, all drawn from Sheriff's Office statements, court filings, and major news reporting. Case 5. Kevin Salgado. In the early morning hours of February 4, 2026, federal agents executed a coordinated sweep across 17 locations in Washington, Oregon, and California, when arresting 14 individuals in a major takedown of a drug and gun trafficking organization affiliated with the Black Gangster Disciple Street Gang. At the center stood Kevin Salgado, 27 years old, of Puyallup, Washington, identified by prosecutors as the ringleader who allegedly orchestrated the manufacture and distribution of counterfeit oxycodone and Xanax pills laced with lethal substances, alongside methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine. The investigation, led by Homeland Security Investigations with support from the Drug Enforcement Administration, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, United States Postal Inspection Service, Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation, Tacoma Police Department, and Seattle Police Department began with a wiretap in 2023. Over the years, when intercepted communications revealed conversations about exchanging drugs for firearms, highlighting the violent undercurrent of the enterprise. Salgado allegedly directed the production of these fake pills in Western Washington, then distributed them not only locally but across the country via the United States mail. Federal officials stated that 3 overdose deaths had already been linked to substances connected to his activities, underscoring the deadly impact. During the February 4th operation, agents seized approximately 887.9 grams of fentanyl pills, 924 grams of fentanyl powder, equating to over 533,000 potentially lethal doses, 355.3 grams of methamphetamine, 557.6 grams of cocaine, 3.5 kilograms of counterfeit oxycodone pills, 236.2 grams of real oxycodone pills, and 268.8 grams of Xanax pills. The haul also included dozens of illegal firearms, including high-capacity magazines and Glock switches, machine gun conversion devices that turn semi-automatic pistols into fully automatic weapons, along with $1.5 million in cryptocurrency traced to the operation's proceeds. These seizures painted a picture of a sophisticated network blending drug manufacturing, interstate trafficking, and armed protection. Salgado faced federal charges including conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, with the indictment unsealed shortly after the arrests. He and the other defendants were scheduled for initial appearances in federal court in Tacoma the following week. Prosecutors emphasized the collaborative effort that dismantled what they described as a dangerous criminal enterprise, making communities less safe. The Black Gangster Disciples affiliation added another layer, tying this local operation to broader gang structures known for violence and organized crime. Salgado's role as alleged leader involved overseeing pill-pressing operations that mimicked legitimate pharmaceuticals but contained fentanyl and other narcotics, a tactic increasingly used to exploit users seeking prescription relief. Court filings detailed how the wiretaps captured discussions of logistics, from sourcing precursor chemicals to packaging and mailing shipments. The nationwide reach meant victims extended beyond Washington, with packages arriving in distant states carrying the same risks. As the case proceeded in the Western District of Washington, Salgado remained in custody, the weight of the evidence, from seized drugs and weapons to intercepted calls, forming the backbone of the prosecution's narrative. The operation's success highlighted interagency coordination in combating the fentanyl crisis and associated gun violence. This account draws directly from the U.S. Attorney's Office press release and related federal announcements in February 2026, chronicling the bust that targeted Salgado's alleged empire. Case 6. Ryan Wedding. On March 6, 2025, the FBI announced the addition of Ryan James Wedding, Anna 43 years old at the time, and a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder who competed in the 2002 Winter Olympics giant slalom event, to its 10 most wanted fugitives list. Wedding, a Canadian national believed to reside in Mexico, faced charges in the Central District of California for allegedly running a transnational drug trafficking network that shipped hundreds of kilograms of cocaine from Colombia through Mexico and Southern California to Canada and other U.S. locations. Investigators allege Wedding orchestrated multiple murders and an attempted murder in furtherance of these drug crimes, working closely with elements of the Sinaloa cartel. The operation reportedly moved 60 metric tons of cocaine annually, generating over $1 billion in illegal proceeds each year. He faced accusations of continuing criminal enterprise, murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to possess, distribute, and export cocaine, stemming from an indictment unsealed earlier. The U.S. Department of State, through its Narcotics Rewards Program, initially offered up to $10 million for information leading to his arrest and conviction, supplementing the FBI's $50,000 reward. By November 19, 2025, the reward increased to $15 million amid new unsealed indictments charging Wedding and associates with additional crimes, including the January 31, 2025 murder in Medellin, Colombia, of a federal witness cooperating in a separate case. A wedding used numerous aliases: El Jefe, Giant, Public Enemy, and many others, while directing operations from Mexico, where he allegedly enjoyed cartel protection. The network extended to fentanyl, heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine trafficking across North America, fueling overdoses and violence on both sides of the border. In a November 2025 press conference, U.S. officials described Wedding as one of the most prolific and violent narco-traffickers in modern times, comparable to figures like Joaquin Guzman or Pablo Escobar. 10 defendants were arrested following that indictment, with Wedding remaining at large until January 22, 2026, when he was apprehended in Mexico City during a joint operation involving Mexican authorities, the FBI, DEA, and international partners. Wedding was transported to the United States to face justice in the Central District of California, where he pleaded not guilty to 17 charges, including murder and drug trafficking. The arrest marked the end of a years-long international manhunt, closing one chapter in a case that exposed the intersection of elite athletic past and transnational crime. His journey from Olympic competitor to alleged kingpin involved prior U.S. prison time and unresolved Canadian charges from a 2015 cocaine conspiracy. The FBI and partners emphasized cross-border collaboration as key to his capture, disrupting a pipeline blamed for significant harm. This narrative adheres to timelines from FBI announcements. Addition to the list in March 2025, reward increase and new charges in November 2025, an arrest in January 2026. Case 7, Zhang Dong-Zhi. In the complex web of transnational narcotics trafficking, few figures embody the supply chain from precursor chemicals in Asia to lethal doses on American streets like Zhang Dong-Zhi, a 38-year-old Chinese national known by aliases including Brother Wang, Ji, Kunli Hernandez, Chung Li Gongsun, Memo, BW, Pancho, Hey, Haha, Chino, and some more owner. U.S. authorities accused him of masterminding an extensive operation that funneled fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine into the United States, working in close coordination with Mexico's Sinaloa cartel and Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación. The saga began gaining public traction when Zhang was first arrested in Mexico City during October 2024. Mexican officials placed him in a maximum security prison, charging him with international drug trafficking, money laundering, and forging alliances with criminal groups spanning the Americas, Europe, and Asia. He stood accused of establishing connections that facilitated the transfer of fentanyl from China to Central America, South America, Europe, and the United States, while laundering vast sums through shell companies and bank accounts. Over 170 accounts and 150 companies linked to him in investigations. Yet the story took a dramatic turn when, in the summer of 2025, a Mexican judge controversially granted him house arrest pending extradition proceedings to the United States. On or around July of that year, Zhang escaped custody, reportedly slipping through a hole in the wall under National Guard watch, and fled using a false passport. He attempted entry into Russia, but was denied, eventually arriving in Cuba, a nation without an extradition treaty with the United States. There he sought to disappear further, but Cuban authorities arrested him on July 31, 2025, along with two others, one Mexican and one Chinese national. Mexican Security Secretary Omar Garcia Harfuch announced the recapture and facilitated Zhang's handover to Mexican custody, followed swiftly by extradition to the United States on October 23, 2025. The transfer marked a significant victory in Washington's campaign against the fentanyl epidemic, with Zhang designated a priority target. Upon arrival, he faced arraignment in multiple federal districts. In the Eastern District of New York, before U.S. Magistrate Judge Clay H. Kaminsky in Brooklyn, Zhang was arraigned on a second superseding indictment charging international cocaine distribution conspiracy, international cocaine distribution, cocaine importation conspiracy, cocaine and methamphetamine possession and distribution conspiracy, and multiple money laundering offenses. A parallel case in the Northern District of Georgia added further counts related to his alleged role in distributing drugs nationwide. Prosecutors detailed how Zhang allegedly used coordinators and couriers to move massive shipments, over 1,000 kilograms of cocaine and 1,800 kilograms of fentanyl exported, transported, and distributed, on with annual illegal profits exceeding $150 million laundered through intricate financial schemes. He coordinated importation from Mexico into the United States, then distribution to states including Illinois, Georgia, Michigan, and others, often via land and air routes. Homeland Security Investigations New York, alongside the Drug Enforcement Administration and international partners like HSI Mexico City and HSI Rio Grande Valley, led the probe. Officials described Zhang's network as bolstering cartel operations responsible for overdoses, violence, and community destabilization. Deputy Attorney General Todd W. Blanche emphasized the global enterprise pumping narcotics into communities and the refusal to let him hide behind aliases or borders. Following extradition, Zhang appeared initially in the Southern District of Texas for processing before transfers to face charges in New York and Georgia. He was ordered detained pending trial, with no bail granted given the flight risk demonstrated by his prior escape. The case highlighted the synthetic Silk Road of precursor chemicals from China, where Zhang allegedly acted as a key broker linking suppliers to cartel production labs in Mexico. By late 2025, the return of Zhang Dong-Zhi stood as a decisive blow against those empowering cartels through chemical supply and financial facilitation. Investigations continued into his extensive network, promising further disruptions to the flow of deadly substances. This narrative follows the documented sequence: initial Mexican arrest in 2024, escape in summer 2025, Cuban recapture on July 31st, and U.S. extradition on October 23rd, all corroborated by Justice Department releases and Mexican government statements. Case 8, PatrickOConnor. In the Pacific Northwest, a long-running fugitive hunt for an accused child sex offender reached its conclusion in late 2025 after more than 7 years on the run. Patrick Robert Shea O'Connor, 39 years old at the time of capture, had evaded authorities since early 2018, following indictments stemming from a Washington County, Oregon investigation that began in April 2017. Detectives with the Washington County Sheriff's Office Violent Crimes Unit initiated the probe after receiving a report of sexual abuse involving a child. The inquiry uncovered allegations leading to a grand jury indictment in January 2018 on multiple felony charges: using a child in a display of sexually explicit conduct, child molestation in the second degree, communication with a minor for immoral purposes, and possession of depictions of minors engaged in sexual activity. Additional related charges from King County prosecutors included child molestation, second degree, and further counts tied to immoral communications and possession of explicit material involving minors. O'Connor, described in Fugitive alerts as a man in his 30s with features typical of public wanted posters circulated widely, and disappeared shortly after the indictments, prompting his placement on various most wanted lists, including features on Washington's most wanted segments. Seattle Police Department and regional task forces searched extensively, believing he may have fled the country or relocated within the United States to avoid prosecution. Tips remained sparse until November 2024, when investigators received credible information placing O'Connor in Syracuse, New York. The United States Marshals Service, working with the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office Warrant Squad, acted on the lead. On the evening of November 20th, 2025, deputies arrested him without incident. He was booked into the Onondaga County Sheriff's Justice Center and held without bail pending extradition proceedings. Confirmation came swiftly that this was the same Patrick O'Connor wanted on the national warrant from Washington County, Oregon. Seattle police verified the identity match, closing a chapter on a fugitive who had been highlighted repeatedly in media appeals over the years. The Washington County Sheriff's Office announced the capture publicly in late November 2025, noting the collaborative effort that spanned jurisdictions. O'Connor's evasion had lasted from his disappearance in 2018 through the arrest in Syracuse, a period marked by persistent but ultimately successful law enforcement follow-up on a fresh tip. Extradition processes began immediately, with officials indicating he would return to Oregon to face the original charges in Washington County Superior Court. No initial court appearance date in Oregon had been set at the time of announcements, but the transfer remained in progress. The case underscored the endurance of fugitive investigations, where years-old warrants could still yield results through public awareness and interagency cooperation. Media coverage, including segments on Washington's Most Wanted, had kept the allegations in circulation, contributing to the eventual breakthrough. In Echo Case File, this account remains anchored in the investigative timeline. Probe launch in April 2017, indictment in January 2018, flight thereafter, tip in November 2024, and arrest on November 20th, 2025, all from Sheriff's Office releases, news reports, and law enforcement statements. Case 9, Key and Trade David Bryant Mulner. On the South Hill of Spokane, Washington, in the early afternoon of January 16, 2026, members of the United States Marshal Service Fugitive Task Force surrounded a residence on South Regal Street off East 29th Avenue. They were there to serve an outstanding Washington State Department of Corrections Secretary's arrest warrant on Keentrey Devon Bryant Mulner, wanted for violating the terms of his graduated reentry probation sentence. This probation stemmed from an earlier arrest in April 2024, where he faced charges including first-degree unlawful possession of a firearm, possession of a stolen firearm, fourth-degree assault involving domestic violence, or an escape from community custody under the Washington State Department of Corrections. Task force members established a perimeter around the home, a methodical approach to ensure safety and prevent flight. They announced their presence and issued commands for anyone inside to exit. After a period of no response, a search of the residence commenced. During this careful sweep, officers discovered Bryant Mulner attempting to conceal himself beneath a child's bed in one of the rooms. He surrendered peacefully without incident, ending the brief standoff. Following the arrest, specialists from the Washington State Department of Corrections Community Response Unit conducted a lawful probation search of the premises. That search recovered a handgun along with high-capacity magazines, items that added immediate context to the ongoing enforcement action. Bryant Mulner was taken into custody, his evasion attempt thwarted by the coordinated effort of federal and state partners. The U.S. Marshal Service described him in their January 17, 2026, press release as a violent fugitive, highlighting the nature of his prior charges and the probation violation that brought them to the door. The incident underscored the persistence required in tracking those who breach community supervision, especially when prior offenses involve firearms and assault. Bryant Mulner's path to this moment traced back to the 2024 arrest, where local police and air support units had been involved in apprehending him initially. The graduated reentry program, were designed to transition individuals back into society under supervised conditions, had been violated, prompting the Secretary's warrant. His attempt to hide in such an unconventional spot, in a child's bedroom, drew particular attention in media reports, emphasizing the lengths some go to avoid recapture. With the arrest complete and additional contraband seized, Bryant Mulner faced return to custody to address the probation breach and any new implications from the recovered firearm. The Spokane community, where South Hill residences line quiet streets, saw yet another example of task force operations restoring accountability in cases tied to violent histories. This account follows the official timeline. The warrant issuance tied to probation violation, the January 16, 2026 operation, the discovery under the bed, a peaceful surrender, in the probation search yielding the handgun and magazines, all from U.S. Marshal Service statements and regional news confirmations. Case 10, Rahmanullah Lakhanwal. On the evening of November 26, 2025, near Farragut Square Metro Station in the area of 17th and I Streets Northwest in Washington, D.C., just blocks from the White House, an ambush unfolded that shocked the nation. Rahmanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan national residing in Bellingham, Washington, allegedly opened fire on two members of the West Virginia National Guard deployed as part of federal law enforcement and National Guard efforts in the capital. The victims were U.S. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, 20 years old, and U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, 24. Beckstrom succumbed to her injuries the following day, November 27th, Thanksgiving, while Wolf suffered a critical gunshot wound to the head and remained in recovery. Lochinwall himself was shot by another National Guard member during the confrontation, sustaining wounds that required hospitalization. Investigators identified Lochinwall swiftly, tracing him to Bellingham, Washington, where he lived with his wife and 5 children since arriving in the United States on September 8, 2021, under Operation Allies Welcome, a humanitarian parole program for vulnerable Afghans following the Taliban takeover. Prior to resettlement, Lochinwall had served in a CIA-backed elite Afghan unit known as the Zero Unit, receiving paramilitary training and participating in high-risk operations against Taliban targets in Afghanistan, including in Khost Province, his birthplace. Federal charges followed rapidly. By December 23, 2025, a complaint in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia charged him with offenses related to the killing of Beckstrom and the shooting of Wolf. He appeared remotely via video from his hospital bed on December 2, 2025, pleading not guilty through a Pashto interpreter to initial counts including first-degree murder, assault with intent to kill, and possession of a firearm during a crime of violence. He cited pain and inability to open his eyes during the hearing, leading magistrate judge to order detention. By early 2026, said the case advance. On February 4, 2026, Lochinwall appeared in federal court in a wheelchair, again pleading not guilty via his attorneys to 9 charges, including first-degree murder while armed, assault with intent to kill while armed, illegal possession of a firearm, and related counts. Prosecutors indicated the Justice Department was weighing whether to seek the death penalty, with Attorney General to decide ultimately. Court documents noted Lochinwall had obtained a snub-nosed revolver, allegedly stolen, from an unnamed individual for self-protection while working as an Uber and Lyft driver, though the motive for the ambush remained under investigation. Lochinwall's background drew scrutiny, extensive vetting during his CIA-affiliated service in Afghanistan, multiple security checks, and further review upon entry to the U.S. reports suggested possible personal crisis or radicalization after resettlement, amid struggles faced by some former Afghan partners adjusting to life stateside, issues like employment, visa uncertainties, and cultural displacement. The incident prompted nationwide discussion on vetting processes, though officials maintained Lochinwall underwent rigorous checks multiple times. He traveled cross-country from Bellingham to D.C., allegedly with specific intent before the attack. A relative described family life in a quiet Washington state area, contrasting sharply with the violence in the capital. As proceedings continued into February 2026, Lochinwall remained detained, facing potential additional federal counts. The deaths and injuries, Beckstrom's passing announced by President Trump during a Thanksgiving press conference, left lasting impact on the Guard members' families and the broader community. In Echo Case File, this final case adheres to the documented events. Arrival in the U.S. in 2021, residence in Bellingham, the November 26, 2025, shooting Beckstrom's death the next day, initial hospital bed appearance and plea in December, expanded charges by late December and February 2026 arraignment on 9 counts, all from Justice Department releases, court records, and major reporting. Thank you for joining this series on Washington's Most Dangerous Men here on Echo Case File. We've covered real stories of tragedy, evasion, and injustice, from deadly roads and hidden crimes to drug empires and shocking ambushes. If any case stayed with you, like this video, comment which one hit hardest and subscribe with notifications on for the next file. From Echo Case File, thank you for watching. Case closed, for now.